Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, dear devotees, good morning. Please accept my humble obeisances, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So this morning we have Srimad Bhagavatam class from Canto 1, Chapter 18, text 29 and 30. And so without further ado, I'll start the class. Jayaratha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayaratha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivadadari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamuna Vanachari Jamuna Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Sharad Bihari Radha Sharad Bihari Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gora Nitai Gora Nitai Gora Nitai Jaya Gora Nitai Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Stotara Satyashimadas His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Stotara Satyashimadas His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से द्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंज राधा कुंज गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gura Pimanande, Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Guranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Devi Swami Tinamani Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Stapani. Sri Guru Karuna Shakti Bhakti Devi Tinamani. Narayana Namaskritya Narom Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Gujirayat Nashta Prayeswa Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So as I said earlier, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 29. We do text 29 together. I'll start, and then if you feel inclined, you may chant also. Adhuta, Abhuta Prabhasahasa Shyotrivyam Aditatmanam Ramadam Patyabhut Brahman Matsaro Manyur Evacha Abhuta Purvasahasam Shustrivyam Aditatmanam Ramanam Patyabhut Brahman Matsaro Manyur Evacha Abhuta Purvasahasa Kshotrivyam Aditatmanam Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman Matsaro Manyur Evacha. Hare Krishna.
Adbhuta Purva Sahasa Shutribhyam Artidatmana Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman Matsaro Manyur Evacha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else want to try? All right, we'll do word for word. Abhuta Purva, unprecedented. Sahasa, circumstantially. Should, hunger. Tvedvyam, as well as by thirst. Ardita, being distressed. Atmana, of his self. Brahmanam, unto a Brahmana. Prati, against. Abhut, became. Brahman, O Brahmanas. Matsara, envious. Manyuhu, angry. Eva, thus. Cha, and. Translation by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Brahmanas, the circumstances having distressed him with extreme hunger and thirst, the king directed toward the sage his anger and envy, which he had never before directed toward a Brahmana. Report by Srila Prabhupada. For a king like Maharaj Pariksit to become angry and envious, especially at a sage and Brahman, was undoubtedly unprecedented. The king knew well that Brahmanas, sages, children, women, and old men are always beyond the jurisdiction of punishment. Similarly, the king, even though he commits a great mistake, is never to be considered a wrongdoer. But in this case, Maharaj Pariksit became angry and envious at the sage due to his thirst and hunger by the will of the Lord. The king was right to punish his subject for coldly receiving him or neglecting him. But because the culprit was a sage and a Brahmana, it was unprecedented. As the Lord is never envious of anyone, so also the Lord's devotee is never envious of anyone. The only justification for Maharaj Parikshit's behavior is that it was ordained by the Lord. So, now text 30. Satu Brahman Rishe Amse Gatasam Uragam Rusha Vinirgachandanos Kotya Nidhaya Puram Agata. Word for word. Sa, the king. Tu, however. Brahmarishe, or the Brahman sage. Amse, on the shoulder. Gata asam, lifeless. Uragam, snake. Rusha, in anger. Vinigachan, while leaving. Tanukotya, with the front of the bow. Nidhaya, by placing it. Puram, palace. Agataha, return. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his palace. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The king thus treated the sage tit for tat, although he was never accustomed to such silly actions. By the will of the Lord, the king, while going away, found a dead snake in front of him. And he thought that the sage who had coldly received him thus might be coldly rewarded by being offered a garland of a dead snake. In the ordinary course of dealing, this was not very unnatural. But in the case of Maharaj Pariksit dealing with a Brahmana sage, this was certainly unprecedented. It so happened by the will of the Lord. Om Agyanat Vidandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshun Umilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Rita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate. Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari. Vishavanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpaturu Bescha Kripa Sindhi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatani Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurachise Namaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himavya Devacha Vishnaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So, the text 29 English translation is, O Brahmanas, the circumstances having distressed him with extreme hunger and thirst, the king directed toward the sage his anger and envy, which he had never before directed toward a Brahman. In text 30, the English translation, as soon as I can get to it, is while leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his palace. Mm. Hare Krishna. So this is an interesting situation and a very unusual situation also. Mm. Maharaj Pariksit, a pure devotee of the Lord. Because all pure devotees have good qualities. But the other thing we should realize is that pure devotees are also used by the Lord for different circumstances, in different circumstances, for different reasons. And the reasons that they're used in different circumstances is to bring overall good to people in general. So Maharaj Pariksit, even before we get to this point, we got to this point, earlier texts describe how pious a king and how strict towards the demonic activities that he was. He protected the cow. He wanted to punish the personality of Kali for giving such trouble, bringing about such trouble, having destroyed the three or four legs of the bull. This is the same Maharaj Pariksit that had a conversation with the earth in the form of a cow. So even right at the beginning, the way he was handling his kingdom as a Kshatriya, as a Raja Rishi, a pious king, and king that understands the principles of religion. He was ruling the planet. He was the emperor of the planet wonderfully, as his grandparent Arjun and his grand uncles had all done. So there was so much that the world could benefit from. But here is the same Maharaj Pariksit that is in the forest, and Krishna arranges for him to be very hungry and thirsty. Krishna also arranges for him to see the hermitage of Shamakarishi the sage. And then when he entered, he noticed that the sage was in meditation. But he was hungry and he was thirsty. He didn't ask for food, but even a little water, which is, just the courteous thing to do when somebody comes to visit. You usually give them water, maybe some juice or something, but at the very least, water. And that's what he asked for. But he felt that the sage ignored him. Now, the sage was in meditation. But being in meditation does not mean that the sage was sleeping. He wasn't. And people do come out of meditation. There were situations where Arjun was in meditation. He was asked by Krishna to acquire the weapons from demigods. This is before the Kurukshetra war. He went in meditation. There was a demon that was sent to him, and the demon saw Arjuna in meditation. The demon changed himself into a very, very ferocious type pig with big horns. And then Arjuna was in meditation calling on Lord Shiva. And the animal started racing towards Arjuna. Arjuna woke up in time, but Arjuna was in meditation at that time. So you can make a case for Maharaj Pariksit that Shamakarishi was in meditation, but it wasn't like he couldn't wake up. And at this time, Maharaj Pariksit was in front of him asking for water. So it was the Lord's arrangement. Things that unfolded were such that the Srimad Bhagavatam could be spoken. But now, Maharaj Pariksit had become hungry, and since he was not treated well by the sage, you can see the sage was in meditation, but then the other side of it also was Maharaj Pariksit got upset about it. Anger and envy. So, even though in his case, in the case of Maharaj Pariksit, this was induced by Krishna for a good thing to happen later on, we also have to be aware of the fact that anger makes us act sometimes uncharacteristically. We have to be careful because, for example, our children, because they're not mature, in a younger age, they make all kinds of mistakes. And if we direct our anger towards them rather than correct them, and sometimes we lose it and do something harmful to them, then we are being the bad parents. Lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. These are the 6 gates leading to hell. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't fall into those. And if it is coming, we need to take, that is, the emotions getting to that point where we could lose it, whatever the reason is. We have to be literally able to pray for control of a situation. Sometimes it would mean physically getting away from that place. I remember one situation. We're distributing books, and I've gone through on very few occasions, but this was a program in Mechanicsburg, and so many people were there with their, whatever they were selling. A lot of people, nice weather. This was in the summer, and people were going around looking. And actually, it wasn't a mechanic. This is a different place. This was Harrisburg. Harrisburg. So there were two mothers, two Mataji's. One of them Indian body, and the other one I'm not quite sure where she's from. She looks Oriental. And they were both Christian. And they began to talk to some of the devotees. And then some of the devotees said that I should go talk to them because they were trying to preach Christianity to us. And of course, we came from a Christian background to Krishna consciousness. So we could understand some of the things they were talking about. But they were so convinced and were speaking like Krishna consciousness was actually a demonic thing to do because some Christians think that way. And so for them, they were trying to convert my mind first. But then I also knew some things from the Bible. So then I was going back and forth. And then when I mentioned about Krishna, the Indian Mataji said, Krishna is not God. And it's like I was immediately furious. As soon as I heard that, and it was like my mood changed immediately. And it's like, what do I do? And so before I knew what even to do, Krishna actually helped me with my reaction. I just put my hands together like that. I said, Krishna is not God. Thank you very much. I have nothing else to say. And I just walked away from them, just left them. And so as soon as she mentioned that, in the conversation. But by the Lord's mercy, at least I didn't say something that could have made them also upset. I just repeated her words, Krishna is not God. I said, thank you very much. There's nothing else to tell you. And left them. So anger does in fact come. And we have to be careful how we deal with it. If we react in a very negative way, then trouble may happen down the line. We may do something we may regret. Now, when it comes to envy, well, that was the situation, our story. That's everybody's story. The details may be different, but the underlying cause is the same. We were envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead when we were in the spiritual world. See, the Prabhupada has explained this. We've long forgotten the circumstances because we've been gone a long time, but it was through envy, envying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He owns everything. He's the center of attraction. And with our free will, we were thinking that we wanted to be in his position. We cannot be in the position of the Lord. But wanting to be a controller, then Krishna says, all right, you want to be controller, then you go to the material world and try to be controller there. But envy is still prevalent in the material world. People own some things, other people want those things, and therefore they feel they cannot get it, they want it right now. And they can't get it, therefore they become envious. Maharaj Pariksit was envious of a situation that he found himself in. He has been ignored, so he got upset about that. That was the anger part. And Shamkrishi was well situated. He was in meditation, but the king, he was hungry and he was thirsty. Hmm? He'd like to be in a situation where he's not hungry and thirsty. Shamkrishi was in that situation. So then the king envied the situation that Shamkrishi, the sage, was in. He didn't need to drink water. He didn't need to eat. He was very connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his meditation. So we also have to be careful about envy. So it's lust, wanting for ourselves, selfishness, anger, which you talked about, greed. There's only one time that greed becomes good for us. And the greed is actually a ticket back to the spiritual world. We should be greedy to involve ourselves in service. That is very good. That's greed in the proper perspective. We should be greedy to serve devotees, greedy to serve Guru, greedy to serve the deity. Hmm? And that type of greed is wonderful. But the material type greed, wanting for ourselves, that is also destructive because that's connected with sense gratification. I want more and more and more and more material things. As it said, there's so many times that a person who doesn't have $1 million works hard, whatever the scheme is, and finally gets $1 million. And what happens? I'm satisfied to be a millionaire? No. And many of them have been interviewed. And when they got $1 million, the next thing they think of how to get the next million. So they could be 2 million. And then 2 million, oh, some people have 5 million. Why not me? 5 million. And they work hard, try to get there. Then 10 million. So then they want to amass more wealth for themselves. That's greed. So we have to be very, 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 very careful. Illusion is thinking that this material world is going to give us everything that we want. The material world is temporary. Our body is temporary. For everybody, there's a percentage of happiness, a percentage of material happiness, and material distress before we were even born that we have to go through in this lifetime. And therefore, that will dictate the material things that happen in our lives. And this is why some people sometimes we struggle to get some things following the same whatever techniques or the same instructions to get it. Some people do get it and some people don't, because everybody's scheme of percent happiness and percent distress is set and it's different from person to person. Mm-hmm. And so the only thing left is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he said, Sarvadharman Pariteja Mamekam Sharanambaja, Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Ishamimascha. Abandon all varieties of religion, and the greatest religion that you should involve in religion is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything comes from him. Isn't it a wonderful thing to surrender to him? The one who owns everything? The one who's the greatest, the one who's the strongest, you're automatically protected. You're automatically provided for. Krishna provides our needs. He doesn't necessarily provide our wants. And if we want to be in a situation where there is wealth, then we have to plan the greater, give a Krishna business plan. And that is to be ready to use a large percentage of what is to come to serve Krishna, to involve ourselves in Krishna conscious projects. That should be the aim of a devotee that wants wealth. We should want wealth because we want to serve Krishna. And then you leave it up to Krishna and you do the work that it takes. And if Krishna wants you to be in that situation, he'll put you in that situation. And if not, that's also all right, as long as you're serving. Our greed should always be to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Maharaj Pariksit was like that. And Krishna used this situation of hunger and thirst, so that at the very end, two things would happen. Krishna was going to take Maharaj Pariksit back to the spiritual world. And before that, just days before that, he was going to be spoken to by Shukadeva Goswami, and none other than the cream of the crop of the Puranas, the Bhagavad Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam, which we are now reading from, so that the whole world would benefit from it. So the Lord uses different situations. Sometimes it's seemingly from a material standpoint, it seems negative, or as now the word has become a reversal. But still, everything that he does has an ultimate good to it. Sometimes it's immediate good, sometimes it's ultimate good, sometimes it's lessons that we have to learn. And the lessons we learn sometimes when we go through challenges is that the Lord uses everything for his glorification. We are servants of the Lord. And whenever we go through a situation, we learn lessons from it, but we also should think, how do I serve the Lord in this situation? What is the Lord teaching me to do? And we have to be very, very prayerful about that, because sometimes the answers don't come right away. So Krishna is ready to have us serve him as long as we are surrendered to him. And Maharaj Pariksit was like that. So when he was cursed, which will come later on in the texts to come, he left his kingdom. First, when he went home, he began to wonder, did the sage really hear me? Maybe I thought he didn't hear me, but maybe he didn't really hear me. And maybe this was not the right thing to do. The thoughts came to his mind, but that's in the texts following. So I won't get into it too much. He was a pious person. And so, yes, those thoughts could come. But whatever situation we're in, we use it to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That will always be advantageous to us. So when reversals come, they always contain reasons for our growth as long as we are connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The consciousness must be the right consciousness, and the prayer should be the chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So when we are offended, we don't offend back, because two wrongs don't make a right, as the saying goes. We should think that it's the Lord's plan or something to learn lessons from. So then we should exercise the chance of being, or the quality of being tolerant. As Lord Chaitanya says in the Shikshastika, the third sloka, which is also in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila, chapter 17, text 31, Trinadapi Suni Chena Taro Riva Sahishana, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Trinadapi, it's like downtrodden glass. Sunichena, being lower than that. Tarorapi, like a tree, down a tree. Sahishnuna, being more tolerant. Amanina, not being puffed up with false pride. Manadena, giving respect to everybody. And Kirtaniya, which is the chanting. Sada, every time. And Hari is the holy name of the Lord, Lord Hari. So, one who thinks himself lower than the grass, one who thinks they're tolerant, more tolerant even than a tree is, and the tree is always tolerant, and one who does not expect honor, yet is prepared to give all respect to others, that person can very easily chant the holy name of the Lord. So if we are tolerant, then when somebody offends us, we don't offend back. That is a tolerant person. Now, there's also in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8. This is from Lord Brahma. Very, very instructive verse that he was speaking. Tatenu kampa shikshmano ujante ivatma kritam vipakam. Hidvag vapubir vidadan namaste diveta yomukti padesa dayabak. And this is how we have to live. The reason why we have to be tolerant. The translation of this is, to Lord Brahma speaking to Krishna, my dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, and during that time waits patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you obeisances with his heart, his words, and his body, that person is eligible for liberation. So Lord Brahma is saying that sometimes devotees will go through reactions of past misdeeds. Even though that is a difficult time, we have to understand that the Lord will bestow his causeless mercy on us. And with that understanding, with that hope, with that belief, we will or we have to continue offering respectful obeisances with our hearts, our minds, words, body. And that is the way that the Lord will grant us an opportunity to go back home. So we got to understand everything is provided back to Godhead. Everything is provided in the spiritual world. All we have to do is do things to qualify to go back. Just like it's explained, the Prabhupada says, a legitimate son of a very wealthy person, what does he have to do? Just simply remain alive. The inheritance is there. You're going to get it. So if we remain alive in Krishna consciousness by following the regulative principles in Bhakti Yoga, what's been clearly explained to us, the four don'ts, meat eating, don't involve yourself in it, don't involve yourself in, we shouldn't involve ourselves in illicit sex or gambling or intoxication. The four destroyers of proper life. When we obey those things, stay away from doing those things, then we come to the human platform. Animals don't have the kind of intelligence to stay away from some of those things, but humans do. And so we follow the regulative principles. We chant the prescribed number of rounds, minimum is 16 rounds, which connects us with the divine couple and begging them to allow us to serve them so that our mind's in the right place of service. So with all of that, then the spiritual world is open to us. Golok Vrindavan is a very wonderful place. Of course, Srila Prabhupada spent more time talking about how to, for us to clean up our act and how to connect with Krishna properly. Learn to love Krishna, so Krishna will be merciful to us and allow us to go back home. But if we only had an idea how wonderful home is, even just the way it is decorated, we'll be in awe. Srila Prabhupada is one to be thanked over and over and over again for teaching us this path. And we are most fortunate to be in this royal path of devotion. So we have to take it seriously and help each other. Anybody slacking, do what you can to help them. If you can't, talk to somebody else that can and discuss those things so that the help can be given. Nobody, if you have a good heart, you shouldn't want to see anybody quit Krishna consciousness. It will be a big shame. Although some people do, but it's a big shame. We have to do our part to try to get everybody to stay in, because the reward of going back to Godhead, it is the most awesome thing that can happen to anyone. Mm. So much so that Lord Brahma is saying, yes, those things are there. Mm. Susikshimana means that a devotee is earnestly waiting for the mercy of the Supreme Lord, even while suffering some painful effects from previous sins. Hmm? The guru that initiates us takes almost all of our sinful reactions, the karma from previous lives. But a little bit of it remains, and that we have to go through. On the other part of it is, even a devotee who is initiated sometimes still has some connections that they haven't quite overcome yet. Connections to material activities. Hmm? Something is there that they are still addicted to, and they want to get away from it. And it's difficult for them to get away from it because addictions are not easy to break. And if it's one of or a couple of the regulated principles, then becomes a real problem, because we have to be able to get to transcend this whole negative, don't do this, don't do that. And there's no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. We have to transcend all of that and not even want to go back to that. It means that it has to be physically transcended and also mentally transcended. Mm? And sometimes there is, for a while, struggle from some devotees for maybe one of them. And Krishna will arrange something. If the devotee honestly wants to get away from that, Krishna will arrange something to happen. And there may be some pain involved in it. But still will arrange, and with the understanding, he will give also the understanding that this is why you're going through what you're going through, because the effect of what you're going through has made you now be able to transcend that negative thing that you had trouble, that you were addicted to. That happens in the minds of devotees. Sometimes Krishna makes it that way. So now the road is clear. Mm-hmm. And the other things that we're doing positively, we can add to this and then have a very, very good chance of going back to Godhead. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the body still maintains some remnants of a previous sinful mentality. And so the Lord removes those last things of the enjoying, material enjoying spirit. And sometimes some punishments, sometimes they resemble like simple reactions, but they are to just teach the person to get away from the addiction that is holding them. The little bit that's left. So the Lord rectifies the devotee that way. So the devotee begins to struggle, but the Lord helps him out. And in that helping situation, it looks like the Lord is giving the devotee some karmic reaction, but it is not karmic reaction at all. Devotees don't go through karma. Non-devotees go through karma. And of course, the judgment comes from Yamaraj. But devotees, their accounts are with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee account in the world is with the Super Soul, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so they don't go through that. Karmic things. So when devotees are going through something that's difficult, it's because we have to be willing to accept the Lord's merciful punishment and at the same time continue to offer respect and obeisances to the Lord with words, with body, with actions, and also with our hearts. Because whatever the Lord does for us is good for us. Always good for us. And so when we remember that way, then we will never begin to complain, oh, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Yes, it will be painful, not to the soul, but to the physical body. And since there's consciousness all over this physical body, then we feel pain. But There's a reason, and it purifies the devotee. And with that understanding, we should go on serving. And we say that because there have been situations that I know of, and some people maybe listening may know of too. That sometimes devotees think, oh, because I'm now in Krishna consciousness, I'm chanting, therefore Krishna is supposed to protect me, and he does protect me. I believe he protects me, therefore no hardship would come. Hmm? That's why we're talking about this particular situation. The Lord provides those things in order for us to get away from the weaknesses that we have and be able to go back so that He Himself will give mercy so we are able to go back to Godhead. So when those things are happening to us, the difficult things, we should not give up. There are people who say, why did Krishna do this to my husband? Why did Krishna do this to my wife? Therefore, he is not merciful. Therefore, I don't want Krishna consciousness. I don't want to stay in it. Never make that mistake. There's always a good reason for why things happen, even seemingly negatively. And for Maharaj Pariksit, it was seemingly negative, but the reason was that ultimately Srimad Bhagavatam would be spoken so that the whole world can be redeemed from the Maya activities that are now overshadowing us so much in this Kali Yuga. Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai. So devotees, thank you for allowing me to do the service. And now if you want to make comments or talk about some takeaways or ask questions, you can unmute yourself now. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, dear Krishna Prabhu, please go ahead. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble obeisances. All Krishna
That's
Srila
nice.
Prabhupada. Thank you so much for such wonderful points.
Krishna, His mercy, His mercy. Go ahead.
Jai, Jai. So, just one thing I wanted to share about this wonderful point that how merciful Shri Guru is, that he takes our past karmas during initiation. What I also heard, Prabhu, is that deal, that exchange of karma takes place based on the degree of our surrender also to Shri Guru and Shri Krishna. It's just not that we sit in the yagna and everything is done. It depends on how much surrendered we are. Because Krishna is so intelligent, he will just not let our Guru suffer for us unless we are completely surrendered.
Very good point to bring. Very, very, very good point to bring to add to this. Thank you for adding it. The fact of the matter is, yes, Krishna does know our hearts. And when you look at it, there's so much mercy from Guru because there have been, situations where gurus have initiated devotees, initiated persons to bring them into Krishna consciousness, and they weren't quite ready yet for very good reason involving mercy that the guru did in fact initiate that person. And I know of instances where that happened. Sometimes even one situation, very, very extreme situation, but to save a marriage. One spouse wanted initiation, the other one did not, but the guru initiated both of them in order to be able to guide them. So the mercy is given that way. But at the same time, as you were pointing out, there's always checks and balances. Even spiritual too, there's checks and balances. So thank you for adding that to it. Hare Krishna. Anybody else wants to speak up? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances of Blessed Prabhupada. Thank you, dear Krishna, for the wonderful point, that how much it comes back to us, how much we realize, how much we want to surrender. And I like this point where he says, and I think in reference to what you said towards the end of the class, that, once we get initiated, we think that the job is done. That's a closed deal. So when the deal is closed, now it's all mine. I can do whatever I want to do. Like in the Christian churches, they say that, those that go to church and they sit in the pews, they go to confession, they say everything, and they come out and they go back to doing nonsense again. And then again, they do it every week like that. So I think that's a very good point, that we cannot take it for granted. I'm initiated, I'm all covered. It actually, that's when I think we have to watch even more of what we do and how we do, when we do, and when we should not do. So that was a good point. But a question that I have, and going back to the purport, and it's actually the last line of verse 29, where Shri Prabhupada says that for Maharaj Parikshit's behavior, it was ordained by the Lord. And I want to ask that question, if you could shed some light, is sometimes we come across situations where devotees say, oh, it's ordained by the Lord, it's meant to be. Like they use that phrase very loosely, very lightly. How do we know, or do we know, should we have that consciousness, oh, it's sanctioned by the Lord, so that's why it happened, when actually it can also be our misuse of our intelligence, if I'm making sense here?
Yes, there's no shortcuts in Krishna conscious life. We cannot cheat the process. That's one. And number two, things that are ordained when they're connected to pure devotees. That's the second point. If we're not pure, then we're not doing things ordained. We are doing things under the instruction of the spiritual master. That is the difference. We can't just jump and say, oh, this is happening, that's happening. And sometimes there are devotees who said, oh, I was not able to do this, but the Lord is there by the Lord's mercy. It will get done. It will get done. And for doing that, for thinking that way, service that actually had to be done by that devotee doesn't get done because, oh, the Lord can arrange something. The Lord will always arrange something. No, we should own the responsibility of doing whatever service has been given to us. We cannot shortchange the system, the devotional system. It never works that way. Things that are ordained, usually when things are set like that, it is in fact one that occurs much more frequently with pure devotees. See, Dear Krishna Prabhu also put something else in the chat, and I'm going to read it. Hare Krishna. I also heard that even after initiating, Krishna keeps the results of our karma in reserve stock, and based on our surrender or non-surrender to Krishna or Guru, he continues to nullify or release those results to devotees to keep them on track. That's an interesting point to add to this. Yes, what happened is always what's happened, and that's always known. But the mercy of the Lord is there. So when we do things that are not so good, then we don't get a chance to go back to Godhead. There is some mercy. There is some mercy. It's known, but it's the things that we've done. Of course, it's always known. Krishna doesn't forget anything, so it's not surprising that the karmic stuff is still known. That it will be known, but there's also mercy if we are genuine. So it's our effort that attracts the mercy. And if we don't put in good effort, then we shouldn't expect the mercy, which means that we have to continue with our situation. Narada Muni says there's no loss, though, because everything that we do that's positive, that's the other side of it, that's positive in Krishna consciousness is also reserved. And it comes if we take a next body, not wishing that on anyone, wishing that everybody goes back to Godhead. But in the event that somebody is not so successful, maybe they didn't obey all the regular principles, kick them out, and for one reason or another, they have to take another body. Krishna arranges for the person to be in a fixed up family where everybody's strictly Krishna conscious, so they can learn from their mistakes. If it's a financial issue, they maybe take birth in a very wealthy family, so having to struggle for money is not an issue. So the more time can be put into Krishna consciousness. So all of these are there. So even when somebody is not making it back to the spiritual world, there's still arrangement that's made. On top of that, everything that's done in Krishna consciousness, pious credits, spiritual credits, they are all also maintained to be used, to be accumulated on for the next life, make the person go back to Godhead. So yes, there's checks and balances, and there's a lot of mercy built into this too. We just have to take it seriously because in Kali Yuga, things are not getting better. They're not going to get better. But the holy name is there. And when we chant it, the chances of going home and staying among the devotees, that is very important, sadhu sangha, so that we can remember Krishna all the time. Devotees, friends who are devotees that help us remember Krishna, coming to programs so we can remember Krishna, serving the Lord so that we can have more spiritual credits. It all add up. And then we can get the mercy of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you for that comment too on the text. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other takeaways? You can unmute yourself and join. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Dev Mataji, please go on. We can see now. Just unmute yourself. I know you waved. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you a question, and the question is this. If you are doing something, how am I going to word this? If you are doing something, but you're not conscious of doing it with Krishna in mind. I mean, you're just doing it out of goodness, but you're not thinking. No, let me reword this. If you're thinking of doing something, and you're doing it you're doing the service thinking, oh, I'm going to get credit. I'm going to get credit, and you're thinking this way, it doesn't count, does it? I mean, you have to do it in a pure way and not thinking of yourself at all. I mean, or thinking, I'm doing this nice service and it's going to accrue credit. What is the mood? What is the mood that one should approach doing service?
Very good question. The fact of the matter is that every service that we do, it does in fact add to our spiritual bank account. That's not something that we set up. Krishna has set that up. So we really, as real servants, what does a servant do? A servant is serving a master. A servant is not serving the master saying, oh, this is a service I did, and today I've done this other service, and they asked the other one, and they asked the other one, they asked the other one. We shouldn't really be thinking of the accumulation of spiritual credits, even though it is going on. We should focus our attention on the service itself, because the real reason we're doing service is to develop love for Krishna. That's the bottom line, is to develop love for Krishna. We have fallen out of love for Krishna. And if we love someone, we think about them, we do things for them. We don't do things and count and say, okay, I did this today for my lover, I did this today for my lover, therefore I expect so and so and so and so from my lover because of what I've done. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not, that's a business deal then. But the whole point of service is to develop love for Radha Krishna, because that's the cosmic, as my Guru Maharaj put it, the cosmic glue that binds everybody together. In the spiritual world, it's all about love. So they serve from their hearts that way. So yes, our service attitude would be give to develop, or give of myself to develop love for Krishna, and it will come because Krishna will also reciprocate. And that way, we think more about the love, then the activity becomes constant and automatic because of the love that we're developing for Radha Krishna. So service should be practice to develop love, not practice to say, okay, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, and my spiritual credits are increasing. Yes, they are, but that's not something to be concerned about. Ours is how to develop love for Krishna through service. Hopefully that's clear. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to add, you know how like Debbie, the other day you walked into the temple room in the temple lobby, and the first thing you asked me was, honestly, where's the vacuum? Because you wanted to do it. You're not
Yes.
credits. That's exactly what it is. You're like, where's the vacuum? I need to vacuum this. And you just did it spontaneously, you know? So that's what it is.
Yeah. Very good attitude. What needs to be done, and you just do it. That way you can develop love. Krishna will help you in so many ways when you do like that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions, comments, takeaways? All right, Prabhu, thank you so much for allowing me to do this service. And it is Tuesday. There's so much left of the week, which make good Krishna conscious use of the rest of the week. Vanchakapatiruvischa kripa sundivya evacha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavevyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai go Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna, Danutma.
Hare Krishna. Go Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.